What's up guys, welcome back. This is anime fiction. You'll be watching What If Naruto Got Pika Pika no Mi and Became the Yellow Flash Part 9. Now let's begin. At this point, the majority of students have departed from the school premises. Many individuals were still hopeful that this was merely a practice exercise. However, with all the teachers rushing towards the location, it's easy to imagine the level of panic they experienced. Currently, there is a lively discussion among the students in the Hero course from years 2 and 3 about the possibility of returning and providing assistance. They all had provisional licenses, so they made the decision to proceed. They lacked complete understanding of the situation, but it was evident that something was amiss, given the teacher's noticeable level of panic. However, as they were discussing whether or not to enter, several hundred wrongdoers arrived at the gates. This was unfortunate for the students, as it indicated that the teachers were not succeeding. The students in the Hero course swiftly intercepted them. Shoto effortlessly freezes over 100 of them in an instant. Despite the need to take a break to defrost afterwards, he remained dedicated and focused. Bakugo, with his expertise, made the bold move of leaping into the midst of them and causing explosions that engulfed everything in sight. Meanwhile, Nijire effortlessly dispatched a large number of opponents with precise and strategic waves. Tamaki also began vigorously attacking them with his tentacles. Mirio displayed a remarkable ability to seamlessly move in and out of the ground, catching villains off guard. With all of the students in attendance, led by the top 3 leaders, they effortlessly overcame the group of villains. The majority of the frightened students had already left. Some individuals were attempting to escape the reach of the jammer quirk. The students of the Hero course made the decision to enter, recognizing the potential strain on the teachers from the attackers. And they were absolutely correct. The situation appeared to be much more challenging for the teachers. They found themselves in the midst of a vast sea of villains. The sheer magnitude of the villainous army was staggering, reaching a point where even heroes like Nizu had to step into the fray. However, Nizu opted not to engage directly, instead taking charge of the jammed defense system through manual control. The teachers were all feeling the weight of expectations. Midnight's suit was already torn, and the teachers were all donning specialized masks to withstand her scent. She successfully lulled many of them to sleep. Snipe was running low on ammunition by this point, while Cementos was also facing a tough time. Collapsing buildings on villains had taken a toll on his energy. Mike's throat was in considerable pain, while Vlad was on the verge of losing consciousness. Among all the robots released by Majima, only the zero-pointers managed to endure. However, they were all being overwhelmed by villains. Aizawa found himself in the position of assisting All Might, who was currently injured. The men in the suit also chose to participate in the battle at some point earlier. He appeared to be provoking All Might, firing off a series of air cannons whenever the hero neared victory against an adversary. The students played a crucial role in resolving the situation, as explosions and flames broke through the encirclement of the villains. Shoto clearly made the choice to unleash his flames with full force, recognizing that this was a serious moment that called for his utmost focus. He and Bakugo were the ones who made the most impactful entrances. Nijire demonstrated her expertise by effortlessly overpowering and subduing villains with her powerful waves. Not everyone possessed the necessary skills for group battles, resulting in a limited number of opportunities for them. As the Hero course students rushed to assist the teachers, Monoma dashed away with impressive velocity, utilizing Ida's quirk to expand the distance he could traverse. His calves had already suffered severe burns from the motors. However, he persisted in his efforts, continuing to run and dial the number provided by Aizawa. He was diligently working to finish the assignment assigned by the teacher. All Might already has a strong suspicion about the identity of the leader of these individuals. The unmistakable air cannon signature revealed his undeniable connection to All for One. The individual they were dreading arrived at the most inconvenient moment imaginable. This attack took everyone by surprise. Nizu may have mentioned the possibility, but nobody anticipated a consecutive attack. They clearly had a goal in mind. From the sheer ferocity with which they were targeting All Might, it was evident that their motives for being here were closely tied to him. It seems their intention was to eliminate him, aiming to achieve what the unsuccessful League of Villains could not. The inheritor of All for One has made the decision to bring this matter to a close. His fingers darken and stretch into the depths of the symbol of peace. Meanwhile, the villain with the ability to control fire unleashed another powerful blast of flames directly at the hero. However, he was unable to accomplish his goal as Aizawa nullified his quirk. The puppet-making antagonist also experienced a temporary setback, as his unique ability was nullified for a brief moment. This caused all the dolls to become motionless statues, requiring the villain to re-establish physical contact with them. The individual wearing the feathered hat was apprehended by Aizawa upon their initial arrival at this location. Cementos wasted no time in trapping him within a solid block of cement. Snipe skillfully took down the politician, strategically positioning himself within a crowd to outmaneuver the villains. However, Snipe effortlessly located him thanks to his unconventional gear. The mask was improving the volume of his voice. At least 2 of the leaders were taken down. However, the others remained equally bothersome. The CEO was quite bothersome. Currently, his physique was strong and well-defined. He endured numerous blows from All Might, yet he persisted in standing up. However, with the involvement of the individual in the suit, the situation took a turn for the worse. The students and teachers valiantly fought against the relentless onslaught of villains pouring out of the portal, while All Might's stamina began to wane. Having his back pierced was definitely not beneficial. How unprofessional of you, All Might. The hero recognized his tone, which carried a peculiar mix of animosity and familiarity. May I inquire about your identity? What are you aiming to achieve? Inquired All Might, seeking to validate his suspicion. That's unfortunate. Do you not even recognize me anymore? Did you really believe I would perish without a fight? All Might's complexion immediately paled. This was not just the inheritor of All for One, but the very embodiment of All for One. His voice had undergone a transformation, as had his physique, yet his manner of speaking remained consistent. The issue at hand was that All for One had made a full recovery, while the user remained injured and under a time constraint. I wonder how All for One managed to stay alive after all of that. It's difficult to determine, but if All Might were to speculate, it likely had something to do with the transfer of All for One's quirk to this individual. The situation was becoming increasingly dire. However, that won't last much longer. After successfully escaping the reach of the jammer quirk, Monoma breathed a sigh of relief. He was located several kilometers away from UA. His legs were severely burned by the intense heat emitted by the engines. However, he successfully completed the phone call in the end. What is your intention? Who is responsible for the attack? Can you please provide me with the number of villains? I inquired with a sense of urgency. They emerged from a portal. There was an issue disrupting phone signals. I hurriedly called you after escaping, but the situation was still dangerous when I left. The voice sounded worn out and anxious. All right, I will arrive shortly. I will conclude my work here. It would be wise for you to take a break for now, I stated firmly. I could sense a sense of relief just before I ended the call. I was taken by surprise when I received the phone call. I need to act quickly if UA is under attack. Makia still had a long way to go. Considering the impact of MT Lattice dropkick, it seems that only a few bones were broken. I observed him potentially breaking free from his restraints. Even the spikes securing him to the ground were beginning to crack. However, I no longer have the luxury of dedicating any additional time to engage with him. I raised my hand and greeted him with a friendly gesture, launching 4 precise beams of light aimed at his limbs. He was unable to avoid them, as he lacked sufficient speed. Not even close when compared to me. His limbs were swiftly severed. He was left with just his torso and head. We have all the necessary elements for interrogation. Best Jeanist and Kamui were taken aback by my impressive handling of the situation. UA is currently under attack. I must depart. It seems like you have some experience in handling things here. I swiftly made my exit, unleashing a barrage of 4 lasers aimed at the wounded remains of the colossal antagonist. Sealing the wounds with meticulous surgical precision. It's simply to streamline the process for the individuals apprehending him. Given his lack of regeneration quirks, I achieved a remarkable speed in reaching UA. I witnessed a significant number of individuals swiftly moving in the opposite direction. I also detected a group comprised of students and teachers bravely standing against a multitude of villains. The individual who contacted me probably left prematurely, unaware of the significant expansion in the number of adversaries. A majority of the students sustained injuries. Several individuals were unconscious. Bakugo appeared fatigued and in need of hydration during the battle. Shoto continued to confront and neutralize villains, his body drenched in perspiration. Izuku was dedicated to reducing the number of villains. However, an increasing number of individuals were emerging from the portal. Naijuru was impressing everyone and making a strong effort to protect their group from the villains. Shinso had complete control over Giton, the ice quirk user of the Paranormal Liberation Front. Although, I'm not quite sure what they prefer to be called these days. There's a noticeable decrease in their numbers, and both Redestro, the CEO, and Trumpet, the politician, were exhibiting peculiar behavior. Very precise and methodical. All of the former high-ranking members of the Meta Liberation Army exhibited similar behavior. Ochako and Ida were incapacitated, while Tsuyu was efficiently retrieving the fallen students and bringing them back into the designated area. So was Tamaki. Mina skillfully launched her acid at the formidable group of villains, while Toru expertly maneuvered through their ranks. A bit risky, but Toru was slightly beyond her comfort zone. Nijire continued to soar through the air, her suit showing signs of wear and tear, and her skin bearing the marks of cuts. Mirio appeared to have boundless energy, soaring from the earth and swiftly subduing wrongdoers at every turn. Tetsu and Kirishima managed to maintain their grip. They demonstrate a higher level of endurance compared to many of their peers. The teachers were just as unimpressive as them. Vlad displayed remarkable determination and resilience, despite the absence of one of his hands. Mike's throat was bleeding, and his vocal cords were severely damaged. Midnight was in a precarious situation, as most male villains found it difficult to approach her. However, due to the presence of her allies in close proximity, she was unable to effectively utilize her aroma. However, the teachers were equipped with professional protective gear. Cementos was defeated. He was lacking both an arm and a leg. Snipe was in melee mode, indicating that he had run out of ammunition. Recovery Girl was diligently moving about, doing her utmost to stabilize the condition of everyone. 13 maintained her strong grip, fearlessly tearing apart any villain that dared to cross her path. Her relentless attacks instilled such terror that they hesitated to even approach her. However, she appeared to be in a state of panic and fear. She has a strong commitment to her duty as a hero, and while she may not enjoy causing harm, she remains resolute in her mission. I also witnessed numerous damaged robots scattered across the ground. With no experience whatsoever, Aizawa appeared to be in the most unfavorable condition among all of them. His body displayed severe burn injuries. Both of his arms were severely injured, with bones visibly protruding from them. One of his legs was severely injured and one of his eyes was severely damaged. Overall, the situation appeared to be more challenging than I had expected. It was highly frustrating. It's truly disheartening to witness the current condition of my friends and colleagues. The villains ceased emerging from the portal. However, there were approximately 20,000 of them, excluding those that were removed by the students and teachers. And then there was All Might. He lacked one arm and had run out of gas, causing him to return to a weakened state. Fortunately, the students had a limited view of him, at least not all of them. It would have greatly impacted their morale. The men with white hair in front of him appeared to be the source of that. I noticed his hand swelling up, preparing to launch an air cannon directly at All Might's chest. I soared ahead of him, sending him flying into a nearby building. This gym was a standout among the facilities at the school. It appeared to crumble right on top of him. I observed All Might. I will handle it from this point forward. He glanced up at me, his eyes filled with renewed energy. He's all for one. He was exhausted, he simply collapsed after uttering those words. It seems he was not in a condition to engage in a battle against a resurrected All for One. I could hear Nijire shouting with excitement, "Naruto has arrived." The majority of the students who were still awake appeared to become more composed. I swiftly grabbed hold of All Might and soared towards their location. I believe he has already lost One for All and should go to Recovery Girl for a checkup. The students witnessed me assisting a slender individual dressed in All Might's costume. They appeared slightly perplexed, but the majority of them visibly relaxed upon seeing me. Izuku appeared shocked by All Might's appearance. So did the majority of teachers who were awake. the villains appeared to have a contrasting response in comparison to the students. Many of them seemed startled and took a step back when they saw me. I surveyed the students and the few remaining teachers. You should all take a break. I gathered all individuals back into the circle they had formed using delicate tendrils of light. I efficiently created clones and instructed them to assist in transporting the more critically injured students and teachers. I will ensure that these individuals face the consequences for their actions. I intend to give it my all. Surveying the area, there were numerous adversaries to contend with. I was able to identify certain individuals, such as Dobby and even a few members of the Paranormal Liberation Front. Even Mr. Compress was present, but the teachers had already taken care of him. Geeton, the ice user clad in a sturdy winter coat, was also apprehended by Shinso. He initially influenced his thinking. Then Juzo, from Class 1B, skillfully manipulated the ground, causing it to sink until only his head remained above the surface. So that was 3 individuals attended to. He, Trumpet, is the politician known for his ability to rally and energize people, along with Mr. Compress. The individual in formal attire, whom all might refer to as All for One prior to losing consciousness, remained trapped beneath the rubble of the gymnasium. That's the conclusion I've reached based on my observations. I believe he has acquired Kurogiri's Warp Gate quirk. Kurogiri is still unconscious, ever since Shigaraki was apprehended and All for One was defeated. I had my reservations that All for One was truly deceased. However, now I can be quite confident. This person has apparently acquired that characteristic for a limited period of time. If he wasn't a highly skilled individual, then organizing all of this in less than a week would have been impossible. However, I can't recall if he possessed any special ability to assist him with that. Perhaps the original All for One retains his consciousness, similar to how One for All preserves the consciousness of each previous wielder. Regardless, I will ensure that he meets his demise today. Once more. There were also some unfamiliar faces that I couldn't quite place. Unfortunately, this wasn't the ideal time for their introduction, but there's not much that can be done about it. It's evident that their size was not as significant as depicted in the show. I recall that they were expected to have approximately 100,000 members, with Shigaraki at the helm of the organization. Now they were around 22,000. It's impressive that the teachers and students were able to handle 2,000 villains. But moving on, I don't have much time to dwell on the way things were supposed to happen before my intervention. I could detect All for One's departure from the wreckage of the collapsed building. He was now positioned above the other villains, observing me from a higher vantage point. I have chosen to temporarily disregard him and will address the matter at a later time. I would like to address the less significant matters first. I observe the group of villains as a radiant glow surrounds me. It felt like a sudden burst of brilliance. Emerging from it, I was adorned in my attire. Even though it was constructed from pure light, I was able to maintain control while moving, which made it quite flexible. So, why isn't anyone engaging with me? I inquired of the assembly of wrongdoers. They appeared to be taken aback by that question. If some individuals failed to recognize me without my attire, they certainly do now. It appears that there was a high level of enthusiasm during the altercation between the students and the teachers who were at a numerical disadvantage. Where is your bravery now? I inquired with a wry grin on my face. A lieutenant made the decision to voice their thoughts. He was a skilled individual who possessed the unique ability to create and manipulate puppets in the shape of humans. He's just a single individual. There is no reason to be afraid. He attempted to soothe their army, but Redestra was too overwhelmed to deliver a speech at the moment. His quirk functioned by causing his body to darken in response to specific negative emotions. Currently, his entire body appeared to be black. He was not in a suitable condition to deliver a speech on any topic. Dobby appeared to have a strong desire to eliminate both me and the remaining individuals. He attempted to unleash a burst of blue flames towards us. However, the attack proved ineffective as 13 effortlessly absorbed it with a single hand, requiring no action on my part. She appears to be a significant factor in their ability to endure for an extended period. She effectively neutralizes most ranged attacks. The costume was designed to withstand extreme temperatures, ensuring its durability. Despite the unsuccessful attempt, the remaining villains were still motivated by it. It appears that taking action is a strong source of motivation for them. I suppose it would be appropriate for me to take action as well. Around 100 clones were created from me. They all grew to enormous proportions. I provided them with the form of the parent once more. However, I increased their size by twofold compared to the previous occasion. I didn't have any intention of attempting to capture all of them. If they managed to survive, that's acceptable, but if they unfortunately passed away, it's unfortunate. I am not interested. The giants moved with a level of skill and expertise that surpassed that of both the regular members and the lieutenants. They were not dealing with students on the entrance exam, so there was no need to show leniency to anyone. I will intentionally spare only Davy's life. Primarily because I hope Endeavor receives a wake-up call. The giants displayed their immense power by forcefully striking the ground, resulting in a devastating shockwave that caused significant damage to the nearby structures. The majority of them were already in a state of disrepair as a result of the ongoing conflicts. However, there was no trace of debris in sight. I also developed a transparent light screen for our protection. In a matter of mere seconds, the giants effortlessly decimated more than half of their own ranks. Regardless of their rank, if they found themselves within the vicinity of the giants, their chances of survival were slim. The speed at which they moved outside their teleportation was incredibly fast. It added a significant impact to their attacks. They had reached a level where they were causing seismic activity. They were teleporting around and repeatedly smashing the ground, showing no regard for the ants they were unintentionally harming. All for One attempted to intervene. He skillfully deployed air cannons with precision and expertise. However, none of his attacks were able to affect the giants in any way. So the attacks affected those who were able to respond quickly. I intentionally caused the giants to disregard the former antagonist. He may have grown accustomed to being overlooked, but it's clear that he doesn't appreciate it. I have no intention of showing him any respect. All for One made no attempt to escape. It suggests that he still has a trick or plan in store. I would not have allowed him to escape under any circumstances. Forming a gate and passing through it typically takes approximately 1 second. I can efficiently and effectively handle the situation, ensuring that he is incapacitated. In previous encounters, I never fully showcased my true speed during our battles. I maintained a level of professionalism similar to his. However, I don't feel inclined to do that today. The regular members of the army were swiftly defeated. Not a single one of them possessed the strength to endure more than a single blow from the formidable giants. This was no longer a battle, it was a complete annihilation. A single one. Upon arrival, it was evident that the situation had taken a turn for the worse, leaving myself and the other students concerned. It is clear to me that the villains are toying with the teachers. If they were to launch a collective assault, their ability to withstand the attack would be severely tested. Perhaps it was the enticing scent of midnight and the mysterious allure of 13's dark void that deterred them. Cementos was highly skilled at apprehending villains who lacked enhanced physical abilities. There was an overwhelming number of them. All Might was not within our field of vision. However, it is evident that he is putting up a strong fight, as the shockwaves emanating from their direction are both audible and palpable. Only the experienced expert could see them clearly. Despite her busy schedule of thwarting villains and crushing them into the ground. It is crucial to maintain our position at this time, as we lack the means to determine the enemy's numbers. They continue to emerge from that portal. It bears a striking resemblance to the one from USJ. But I believed he was captured. We are still unable to reach anyone using our phones. Some individuals continue to make attempts to contact the police. However, it appears that the individual responsible for disrupting the signal has not yet been identified. Perhaps it could be a piece of equipment. However, a substantial item would be required to adequately cover the entire school grounds. All we can observe are individuals with malicious intentions, lacking any tools or gear apart from weaponry and a few pieces of protective gear. The initial years appear to be enduring. Many of us rely on the expertise of teachers to criticize the wrongdoers. It has a limited lifespan. Once they become aware of Midnight's limited effectiveness with her quirk, they will launch another attack. However, that weakness will soon be eliminated. Momo has already begun producing gas masks for all the students in attendance. Additionally, by implementing protective measures for the areas that require extra attention, it effectively renders her unable to participate in combat. She's already pushing the boundaries of the recommended lipid intake. However, at this time, it is necessary for us to exercise patience. Monoma is continuing to flee in order to contact Naruto. Naruto's skill is incredibly effective when facing large groups of closely grouped adversaries. Ida offered to go and call him, but Monoma instructed him to stay here and assist the others. There was very little time for conversation, as he quickly replicated Ida's quirk and hurried away. Several events unfolded, causing our line of defense to gradually diminish. Midnight's fragrance was fading, as if she had exhausted her final breath. The remaining teachers sustained severe injuries. The villains displayed a predatory nature, swiftly seizing any opportunity to strike, causing fear among the students. Some individuals chose to leave our group. Despite the best efforts of the high-achieving students and Tsuyu, a number of the students became overwhelmed and fled in a state of panic. Their whereabouts remain unknown. Cementas had already fallen. We were only able to isolate the villains from him and bring him into our group. Aoyama is no longer able to shoot lasers, and he is experiencing significant bleeding. He excessively relied on his quirk to such an extent. Shoji suffered severe injuries, with 3 of his arms being severed and 2 others left broken. Aizawa is nearing the end of his strength. Right as the villains were on the verge of overpowering us and shattering our final line of defense, our experienced senior exclaimed, "Naruto has arrived." That was the catalyst we needed to push ourselves even harder. Within moments, a resounding explosion filled the air. Then Naruto appeared before us, exuding a sense of seriousness unlike his usual demeanor. I've never witnessed him in such a state before. It's possible that he may not be aware of this. However, his appearance is far more menacing than even the most wicked antagonist in that group. His insatiable desire for blood appears to surpass even that of Stains. The villains definitely experienced it as well, with some of them nearly fainting from the sensation. However, witnessing All Might in that condition was truly unsettling. He had sustained severe injuries, with one arm missing and his body drenched in blood. I was completely taken aback. Naruto efficiently relocated all of the severely injured individuals from this location. They seemed to disappear in an instant. Then the battle resumed. It was no longer controlled by the wrongdoers. Naruto effortlessly transformed into his outfit in a blink of an eye. The giants he crafted this time were significantly larger and more agile than the ones encountered in the entrance exam. I struggled to keep up with their movements. The fight came to a swift conclusion as soon as it began. It was incredibly efficient, almost comical in its speed. Although the majority of us were pleased, we couldn't find it within ourselves to rejoice. Many individuals were too fatigued for that. Many of us also witnessed the condition of the symbol of peace, although not everyone fully grasped its significance. It was clear that a number of the students had come to a realization. Suddenly, the leader materialized in front of Naruto, indicating that the battle was far from finished. Naruto's perspective. When All for One finally arrived in front of me, the majority of his army had already been defeated. Either in a state of unconsciousness, deceased, or rapidly approaching that state. Dabi was the sole individual I intentionally spared. All for One appeared unfazed by the way his army crumbled. It had an unconventional feel. Regardless of his strategy not involving the massive assembly of villains, it still required considerable effort to gather such a large group of individuals. However, he didn't personally collect them. I gazed directly into his eyes. Well, look who's here. Are you back for another round of defeat? Or perhaps you have alternative plans? I said sarcastically. The only reason I'm even speaking to this individual is to calm myself a bit. I am still very angry. And I believe it's about to become significantly more challenging. You will be the one facing the consequences this time. Of course, continue to have high aspirations. So, what is your plan precisely? I inquired, maintaining a smirk on my face. Well, it's straightforward, actually. He presented a video to me using his phone. I can only assume it's a live stream. A dimly lit room revealed the sight of a woman, bound to a chair, her body battered and unconscious. Her hair had a pristine shade of white, while her skin had a beautifully sun-kissed glow. She couldn't find her rabbit ears. Her quirk was intriguing. She put up a formidable resistance against my subordinates. He continued speaking, but I had lost interest in his words. Rumi is resilient, she will be all right. These were always my thoughts. It's not my responsibility. She might perceive it as an insult. However, it is puzzling why she did not attempt to give any sort of signal. Quirk Jammer. The one that attacked Tartaros. Regardless of the method used, a significant amount of retribution is warranted. I'm confident she won't have any objections to that. I observed the individual standing before me. It seems that he was probably expecting me to lose my temper and make a rash move, leaving myself vulnerable. Even if I were to engage with him, his response time would not be sufficient to effectively counter my actions. So, is that your plan? I was curious about the source of your self-assurance. I muttered through clenched teeth. Exercising self-control is somewhat challenging, but locating Rumi would expedite her rescue. If you dare to challenge or hinder me in any way, I will present you with a choice, hero. You will have to make a decision between saving someone you care about or prioritizing the safety of those you are currently protecting. He said with a mischievous grin on his face. I suppose I can't respond in any other manner at this point. I was intrigued by the source of his unwavering self-assurance, but it appears that he simply believes he is impervious. The individual's act of targeting Rumi is a grave offense that may have severe consequences. Furthermore, they are now exploiting her as a means of negotiation. It is truly disheartening to see such disrespect towards her as a hero. It appears that he has deprived her of her quirk. Something I'd rather not dwell on at the moment. 30 seconds. You have a limited amount of time remaining to make your decision. I will confront the students afterwards. If you dare to cross my path, the consequences will be dire for someone very dear to you. He appeared quite self-satisfied while describing his master plan. It's unfortunate that he's just an elderly individual trying to hold on to his life. He mentioned that he would wait for 30 seconds. Well, I only require 3. I became invisible in the gaze of the students and the antagonist. I was able to circle the country of Japan approximately 7 times in just 1 second. My understanding encompasses a wide range that I am capable of managing without any issues. I was overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information flooding my mind. Filtering it out proved to be quite challenging. Having a body can be quite challenging at times. I eventually located Rumi in a warehouse located on the other side of the country. She remained unconscious, with significant injuries that were fortunately not life-threatening. All for one ensured her survival in order to keep her as a captive. In the same warehouse, there were 2 other individuals. One of them was a reporter who had previously held a prominent position in the Meta Liberation Army. Her quirk could involve explosive abilities, although I don't recall all the specifics about her. She appeared in several worlds that I observed during my time in the Starfield. That's the sole reason I am acquainted with some individuals in this world. Although, I didn't make an effort to remember everyone. Similar to the individual who was by her side. He had an impressive height and a strong physique. His costume doesn't quite capture the essence of a villain. He was dressed in a sleek, form-fitting bodysuit adorned with striking arrow-like patterns on his chest, waist, and thighs. The costume had an unconventional design. In addition, he was donning a petite cape. I didn't have any spare time to dedicate to either of them. I skillfully brought them down to the ground and enveloped Rumi in a radiant sphere. I positioned all for one's subordinates in front of the camera and fused them together. I swiftly departed, soaring with Rumi to the nearest hospital. Although I have a strong desire to remain by her side, I still had to go back and eliminate all for one. It didn't take him long to figure out that I had something up my sleeve. And would you just take a moment to observe? I was correct. Upon my arrival, he was on the verge of launching an air cannon at the exhausted students and teachers. They had limited means to avoid that attack. It was easy for me to appear in front of it. Setting up a massive barrier was also immediate. It seems that his plan underestimated my speed and abilities. He regarded me with a touch of exasperation. I suppose he hasn't fully grasped the severity of his circumstances. Is that it, old guy? Have you had enough fun yet? I spoke in a plain tone. I didn't make much of an attempt to conceal my fury. He had the audacity to snort in my way. It appears that getting rid of you will be a little difficult. You even abandoned your loved ones. His expression was filled with disdain, and I'll let him continue speaking before wiping that smugness away. How does it feel? knowing that the person you care about the most is dying and there is nothing you can do about it. His smile was truly insane. He's probably under the notion that he'll be able to leave regardless of what occurs. Either using Kurogiri's warp gate or his other teleportation abilities. Otherwise, he would not attempt to carry off this trick. He's attempting to make me suffer as retaliation for humiliating and murdering him on public television. He appeared to be expecting an agonized response from me. But I simply grinned. Why don't you try looking at that live feed for a second time? He looked perplexed for a second. But the perplexity quickly led to terror. He probably didn't expect this kind of outcome. This cannot be. You can even warp. His misunderstanding seemed to have persisted. However, I could see him ready to shift away. I appeared before him, not giving him enough time to respond. Spikes started emerging from my flesh, easily impaling him. But it was not all. In that 1 second of shock, I grabbed his neck and threw him into the air. The spikes stayed embedded in his flesh, preventing him from healing fully. I hope you weren't expecting to leave this place alive. I spoke in a gloomy tone. I don't care whether I seem like a hero in front of the pupils anymore. He's going to die. This was not arguable. It's difficult to make him return Rumi's peculiarity. Asking that would just make him attempt to use it against me. He'll have to ask scientists to create a correct duplicate of his DNA once he dies. He'll attempt to inform them as much as I know about Kyudai's tactics. It's a poor attempt to restore Rumi's peculiarity, but it's all I have right now. He seems to have given up on just escape. He paused in midair and turned to face me. He appeared angry, yet his displeasure is just the beginning. His fingers went dark and reached towards me. I merely appeared above him, and both of his hands dropped off, completely cut off by the light around them. I also punched him to the ground, utilizing little of my speed in the move. However, it was still enough to create a tiny crater and a cloud of dust around him. I could hear him giggle a little. It appears that I'm physically stronger than you. My stamina has also greatly improved. He was going to proceed. But I wasn't going to listen to his BS. Shut up. I'm not interested in this conversation. He scowled a little. But, are you sure you are stronger than me? I asked him straight out. Humph, it appears you aren't too perceptive. In a direct confrontation, I would easily defeat you. He was attempting to get me riled up, thinking that I would start fighting like All Might. Well, if it is what he wants. Speed is weight. I appeared before him. Raise my leg to the side. Have you ever experienced lightspeed kick? I replied with a sleepy smile. I replaced my leg with a lightweight build. I slammed my leg into his face as fast as I could. He was flung flying away, almost becoming into a laser himself. I could see that his skull had entirely caved in. But he won't die only for that. I will give him some time to heal. After all, I've only just started. I glanced at All for One as his head regenerated into its normal shape. My kick's shockwave annihilated every dead or knocked out adversary in our path. This leaves us with some vacant area. It forced the remaining children and instructors back as well. Most of them appeared to have calmed after witnessing my initial exchange with All for One. Mirio even sat on the ground and let out a sigh of relief. Nijire was the same. She laid on the ground as if it were a comfy bed. She must have used her quirk frequently, as her stamina was nearly exhausted. The pupils were all beginning to emulate Mirio and Nijire. Realizing that the issue was very much over. It would have been preferable if they had fled this location. But I think they're too exhausted for that. Most of them appear to be about to pass out. Not that it matters. All for One appears to have difficulty thinking clearly. He just tried to escape utilizing one of his warp oddities. But I just shot a laser at him, blowing him away. I still have the impression that he is hiding something. I just doubt he would have shown up with only that. Not that it matters. All for One, why don't you fight back? Didn't you claim to be stronger than I? I questioned him mockingly. He did not respond much. His mind must be racing with ideas about how to escape. I appeared before him once more. This time, I just transformed my palm into a laser, piercing his left lung. Burning the wound closed as my fist slid through it. This makes him unable to repair it. When I took my hand out, I noticed he was swinging his at me. I didn't bother ducking after all, he was too sluggish. I kicked him in the chin before his hand could hit me, sending him flying skyward. After all, even with all of his physical enhancing quirks, he can only travel at a tenth of light speed. And that was with Trigger. That's remarkable, for sure. But it's not strong enough to even touch me, let alone fight me. I don't feel like showing off today. The previous time was more of a ritual than a battle. This is more similar to torture. While he was in midair, I materialized behind him. My leg was already poised to kick him back to the ground. His body remained composed, while his eyes tracked my leg with a sense of powerlessness. It seems that he possesses a unique ability akin to Nisa's high spec, enabling him to process thoughts at a faster rate than his physical movements. Typically, it indicates that he possesses superior ability to react in combat situations. However, it is currently of little practical value. I observed some indications of reactions, although they were significantly delayed, almost as if they were non-existent. He was forcefully propelled downwards. Most people would not be able to withstand the incredible speed at which he is traveling, but he manages to endure it. I ensured that he landed gently on the chilly concrete. The impact was so powerful that it caused the ground to tremble like an earthquake, shattering it into unrecognizable fragments, creating a large enough crater to accommodate an additional 100 all-for-one units. Only a few villains managed to escape the shockwaves, as the majority had already been blown away beforehand. I also moved him away from the students, in order to minimize the impact on them. I allowed all-for-one to recover at a gradual pace. Whenever he tried to utilize a warp quirk, he would consistently face disastrous consequences. His hands would be obliterated or he would find himself impaled on sharp spikes. His lung injury also impacted some of his other capabilities. He had no means to remedy it at this point. His arm expanded to extraordinary proportions, bringing back memories of our initial disagreement. His legs appeared to possess an exceptional level of strength. He approached me with remarkable agility. He utilized all of the strengthening quirks at his disposal, indicating that he is employing Rumi's quirk against me. Before his hand even approached me, all of his fingers were contorted in peculiar angles. I swiftly maneuvered around him, moving at my top speed, until even the slightest contact would cause his reinforced bones to buckle and fracture. I made sure to illuminate my arm before making contact with him. I wanted to avoid causing any significant harm to myself. After a few seconds, the majority of his bones were either cracked or protruding from his body in an unnatural manner. He appeared to be suppressing a painful gasp. It would be beneficial for him to have some pain-numbing techniques. I believe Gigantomachia had a complete lack of sensitivity to pain. I observed his damaged figure, with a hint of satisfaction in my gaze. Did you anticipate this kind of result, all-for-one? I inquired of him while he carefully realigned his bones. It was a possibility, one I considered unlikely. It's surprising how much you held back during our initial encounter. His voice lacked the same level of energy as before. Witnessing his defeat brings me a sense of satisfaction. Throughout our brief interaction, he was unable to mount any resistance. I have a certain level of sympathy for him. Unfortunately, my strong dislike for him greatly outweighs any sympathy I may have. Ultimately, anger has a tendency to evolve into deep-seated animosity. The transformation may have occurred quickly, but it is evident. Perhaps I may have been giving him too much credit, assuming he had some hidden talent or trick up his sleeve. I highly doubt anything he could accomplish would be more than a minor inconvenience. All-for-one took a seat, appearing surprised and bewildered. Things didn't go as planned. His voice was quite underwhelming. This had lost all its appeal. I am feeling a bit curious now. How did you manage to gather such a large group of people in such a short amount of time? I inquired. Even though, I can already anticipate his response. The demeanor of the high-ranking members was a clear reflection of their professionalism. It was likely a peculiar effect of mind control. However, I don't recall him possessing anything like that. Well, many of the events occurring can be described as the butterfly effect. The impact I made on the events in this world is undeniable. It's not particularly shocking that all-for-one has acquired a mind-controlling quirk, given the recent string of events. Regrettably, he chose not to address my inquiry. Once again, he attempted to escape. Perhaps hoping I was somehow diverted by my own inquisitiveness. Unfortunately for him, I directed another laser towards his liver, leaving him with another injury that is currently beyond his ability to heal. Despite the discomfort, he persevered and continued onward. So I chose to eliminate him once more. The mist of the warp quirk proved to be ineffective in assisting him. I reappeared in his presence once more. You know, it's impolite to disregard someone when they're speaking to you, I stated with a professional demeanor. I must admit, it's a bit hypocritical coming from me. However, I find myself unable to resist the occasional urge to tease him. He appeared to have lost all hope, simply reclining on the ground and gazing skyward. From the perspective of all for one, this is not how things were supposed to go. I have thoroughly prepared for this, considering a wide range of possibilities. It's disheartening to witness everything go to waste. I strongly dislike the individual in front of me. Even now, he is toying with me, like a predator toying with its prey. It's quite frustrating. Since Kyudai successfully transferred my quirk into a suitable vessel, I have been diligently pursuing two objectives. One of them is to stop the hero society that has become increasingly bold in recent times. It's quite a setback, to say the least. All of these individuals who think they are superior and lack strength, going around pretending to be heroes. Engaging in light-hearted activities reminiscent of childhood in a park. Eliminating the symbol of peace will be the more manageable aspect of this plan. He has significantly changed from his previous state. Utterly disappointing and unimpressive. My second objective was to seek retribution. Something trivial that I always considered myself superior to. However, it has greatly impaired my ability to make sound decisions. I am now witnessing the consequences of my lack of patience. I underestimated the formidable opponent I had set my sights on. The Yellow Flash, the symbol of justice, both are titles that some may consider to be less mature, given to a teenager named Naruto. However, it appears that he lives up to those expectations. Impressively, you are the sole individual who has successfully eliminated me. All Might came close to achieving his goal, but unfortunately, he fell short and faced a near-death experience. Naruto, on the other hand, seemed completely unfazed by my presence. Disregarding my presence, I experienced a level of frustration that was completely new to me. The feelings of someone lacking in maturity, but I must confess that they had an impact on me. The initial step of my plan involved incorporating the army of villains and including their numbers in my continuously expanding roster of subordinates. And it only went so smoothly thanks to the clever trick I recently acquired. I am unsure of the previous owner's naming of it. However, the most suitable name that came to mind is Mind Maggot. It's straightforward, really. I have the ability to expel a small creature from my oral cavity. It firmly attaches to the target and penetrates their minds, granting me full authority over the individual. It is quite clear about its limitations. The maggots exhibit a leisurely pace and gradually vanish as time passes. Typically, they begin to dissolve within a week, allowing the affected person to regain some semblance of control during this period. Producing maggots requires a significant amount of endurance. It got to the point where I, despite my numerous stamina-enhancing abilities, could feel the exhaustion it brought. However, it is a highly impressive skill. Implanting the larvae in the minds of all the leaders of the army proved to be a straightforward task. The maggot would utilize the memories of the person it inhabited, enabling them to also adopt the idiosyncrasies of the individuals they possess. It facilitated the annexation of the army, making the process even smoother. Once I had successfully captured the army, a handful of formidable villains decided to join forces as well. Dabi is an individual who possesses a formidable fire quirk, while Mr. Compress has the unique ability to shrink objects and imprison them within a small pearl-like container. They were both destined to be excellent pawns. I refrained from using Mind Maggot on the two individuals, not out of any sense of compassion. However, managing a team of individuals required a significant amount of endurance. It required significant effort to assume control of the entire army. However, I achieved my goals. I then proceeded to acquire the warp quirk from the Nomu known as Kurogiri. I dispatched a team to locate his whereabouts and made arrangements to gather the necessary forces for a full-scale attack on the heroes. I was in need of a diversion, and my reliable ex-bodyguard was more than willing to offer it. He was assigned to safeguard the laboratory, but unfortunately, he was unable to fulfill his duty. He was caught in the explosion, but I successfully transported him to safety just in time. Although he did experience a period of unconsciousness, he is expected to regain consciousness soon. I left him in close proximity to a city, not too far from the correctional facility where my pupil is currently detained. I am eagerly anticipating the opportunity to reveal Tamura's true identity to All Might. It will be quite interesting to witness his surprise as I confront him in the presence of the younger generation he holds dear. Gigantomachia caused quite a commotion. I had the opportunity to infiltrate the hospital where Kurogiri was being held. It was a brief encounter. I entered the location discreetly and successfully acquired his unique ability, although it did trigger an alert. I was surprised to find that the hero who responded was someone with a notable reputation. It was not planned. Utilizing her as a strategic asset seemed like a sound decision. It was easy to capture her. I effortlessly overpowered her and acquired her quirk. I didn't have the patience to wait any longer. I utilized my recently acquired warp ability to relocate my captive to a more distant destination, assigning 2 of my subordinates to ensure her security, as a precautionary measure. Following that, I initiated the attack on UA. Utilizing 4 Nomus with a similar jammer quirk as the one that assaulted Tardaros. It wasn't mixed with any other elements, but the scope of its extension was quite extensive. The entire purpose of this was to deliberately delay my response, allowing me ample time to dispose of the symbol of peace. He was efficiently handling the individuals under my supervision. The students were also fleeing in a pitiful state. Many individuals were feeling fearful and agitated, while some were engaging in aggressive confrontations. These were just young individuals after all. However, they were able to handle some of the less experienced soldiers who made up this army. I initially refrained from participating in the confrontation with All Might. I wanted to assess his condition, and my intuition was correct. He was quite disappointing, as he struggled to defeat a group of individuals who were considerably weaker. The individuals with maggots were competent, but they lacked strength. An increasing number of reinforcements arrived, with students and teachers joining forces in the fight. Observing their futile attempts to overcome the multitude of adversaries I consistently provided them with brought me great satisfaction. However, nothing compares to the satisfaction I felt when my fingers pierced All Might's abdomen. He was already fatigued. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. It was quite easy to overpower him. He was efficient and predictable. Removing his hand was completed swiftly. He began losing enthusiasm rapidly after that. I found his appearance quite entertaining. Such a sorry sight, so feeble. Then, right when I was about to finish off All Might, Naruto swooped in and rescued him. It's only a matter of time before his demise, leaving us to wonder who will take up the mantle of protecting All Might. Well, to be honest, things are not going well. The army I assembled perished, but what came next was truly crucial. The precaution I had taken proved to be ineffective. And the expertise I had relied on proved to be ineffective. I was unable to respond to his movements. Getting away was my only chance, but it seemed like a futile attempt. I only required a brief moment, yet it appears that even a moment was too lengthy. I should have been more thorough in my preparation, but due to my haste, I neglected to adequately research my formidable adversary. I found myself lying on the ground, gazing up at the sky, while his taunting words served as a constant reminder of my shortcomings. Exemplary behavior has all for one thrown in the towel. Did the men who once held power in Japan simply surrender? I find it difficult to believe. However, the manner in which he fell was quite pitiful. He should be facing challenges, making this more engaging. But it seems he has reached his limit. I will no longer invest much time in him. Eliminating him is inevitable. You know, this seems oddly familiar. I said in a warm and amicable manner. He remained unresponsive, consumed by his own thoughts of powerlessness. What happened to his sense of superiority? Was it lost along with his lung? I wish he had shown more resistance, as I haven't had the opportunity to properly interrogate him yet. Observing his actions almost compels me to swiftly bring about his demise. However, when Rumi comes to mind, I am inclined to indulge in a few more photographs. I skillfully raised several spikes from the ground, expertly impaling each of his limbs. The light coursed through his body. I began attacking his body with force, causing severe damage to his organs. The result was a disturbing sight as he appeared to be coughing up blood. However, I ensured that it was a challenging experience. It received little response, perhaps indicating a high pain tolerance similar to Gigantomachia's, which suggests that he has a high pain tolerance. He responds to it in a detached manner, almost like a fish, but he remains unaffected by it. I can't recall the specific name of the quirk, but it appeared to be quite practical. All for one appeared to snap out of his trance, prompting him to speak. Do these actions align with the behavior expected of a hero? It appeared that he had recovered some of his vitality, despite the lingering injuries that remained unhealed. I performed a surgical procedure by making an incision in his abdomen. He managed to catch it just in time, preventing a messy disaster. I am not interested in listening to your lecture. You should be aware of your position, considering your lack of competence. Given his lack of sensitivity to pain, I will continue to apply psychological pressure. It's reassuring to know that he's not feeling at ease. And it appeared to be effective. He strongly resented being underestimated. Despite maintaining a composed demeanor, there was a subtle hint of surprise in his eyes. Perhaps he came to the realization that he held no value in my perspective. I didn't think of him as highly as he thought of All Might. I have already made it a priority. I regard him as less significant than my dinner the following evening. Upon further reflection, next week was scheduled for another date with Rumi. Now I feel down again. Oh, and would you look at that? One of his legs was severed in the explosion. If it weren't for his flying quirk, he would have landed face first on the ground. I strongly disagree with this outcome. Ah, there it is. The recent display of immaturity from a notorious figure of notoriety. Truly motivating for the future generations of individuals who have made mistakes. He is accustomed to maintaining control of the situation, so I suppose those words were more of an instinctive response. It was clear that he believed he had some control over the outcome of our fight. However, he did not. The only way to alter the outcome of this battle is for him to make a drastic decision. In that manner, I would not be able to claim responsibility for his demise. I wouldn't prevent him either. Allowing him to pass away in that manner is the most appropriate course of action. I've already taken care of him before. Will he be too arrogant to do it again? He did something surprising and pulled out a syringe that looked familiar. His hands vanished before the needle could touch his skin. I completed the task with utmost efficiency and speed. Seriously? Doing the same thing again? It was quite expected that he would choose to do this. Given my previous experience with him and his dog Trigger, I was already aware of their presence. Given the circumstances, it appears that the responsibility falls on my shoulders, as he has chosen not to take action. I gazed directly into his eyes. I have a question that's been on my mind. I wonder. If I were to remove your head, would your body regenerate a new one? Or will it try to replicate another body from the neck down? I playfully tilted my head for a moment. Could you please allow me to satisfy my curiosity one final time? Symbol of evil, I made sure to say his title with a tone of utmost sarcasm. He displayed a sense of fear in his eyes at last. I had expected him to embrace this sentiment by now. He simply gazed at the ground, emitting an overwhelming aura of animosity and apprehension that left the students and teachers in a state of shock. I firmly pressed my hand against his face, holding it firmly. He attempted to reach for my hand, but his efforts were futile as they simply passed through me. However, what took me by surprise was the unexpected approach from another individual. Naijiro and Shinso both tugged at my coat, appearing somewhat apprehensive, yet resolute nonetheless. You too? What seems to be the issue? I asked, my tone slightly rushed and irritated. You should cease. You seem to be exceeding the acceptable limits. You are truly remarkable, Naruto. Wow, it's quite surprising that Naijiro had the audacity to raise their voice at me. Naruto. I understand that you want to eliminate this despicable wrongdoer. However, he has already completed the task. Shinso adopted a more composed demeanor. It prompted me to take notice of my environment. Oh yes, the students. They were still present. This may come as quite a surprise to many of them. Today, I didn't quite embody the image of a hero. I notice that the people I hold dear seem to be afraid of me. However, with the appropriate amount of strength, I could eliminate this pest. You too. What specifically would you like me to accomplish? He is responsible for the injuries you have sustained. He is responsible for this attack. He is a highly unreliable individual to have around. Right as I was on the verge of taking action, I was interrupted by another individual. Do you genuinely believe this is the answer to your challenges, Naruto? It was Cheel, the experienced nurse. I observed her briefly, impatiently urging her to make her point already. Do you honestly believe that Eri, a young individual who admires heroes, would find it appealing to witness you in such a state? Get a grip already. She appeared rather upset, but she is correct. Hello there. Would she truly have a favorable opinion of my recent behavior? Would she still admire me? Should I desire her admiration at this moment? I just discarded all for one, causing severe damage to 3 of his legs. And I glanced back, observing the individuals standing behind me. I remained focused on the antagonist. I also ensured that his hands were completely incapacitated, rendering his quirk ineffective. I wouldn't want him to attempt any unprofessional behavior later. His face displayed a profound sense of surprise. Perhaps he didn't anticipate my decision to show mercy at this moment. Last time, I was successful in dealing with him, but it seems he has been granted more time to live. Just a little. Shinso and Naijiro were taken aback, their expressions showing a hint of surprise. Have I truly instilled such a deep sense of fear in them? The individuals who observed the entire sequence of events that transpired between me and All for One. I question whether they will perceive me in the same light as before. I conducted an interrogation on this villain right in front of them. My colleagues, my friends, and students. Everyone appeared to be intimidated by me. It had an unusual quality to it. What would be their reaction if I eliminated All for One in that manner? Would they still regard me with the same level of respect? Perhaps I may have gone a little too far, I said, attempting to add a touch of levity. It had a limited impact. However, another individual appeared to outperform me. Naruto. You seem to have a strong passion for lighting. Did you abandon your aspirations of becoming a hero? It was a professional individual. The initial outbursts appeared to have garnered the interest of those in his vicinity. It made him look around, and what is wrong with all of you? What is causing you fear? Bakugo was surprisingly able to calm down the students, which was quite unexpected. I suppose I didn't conduct myself in a commendable manner. I was self-centered, completely different from the persona I portray when I dress up. Or, I suppose I was similar to All Might in that aspect. We were both motivated by a desire for retribution, but I possessed a greater strength. All for One pushed me to the brink of abandoning my hero aspirations. It's frustrating to realize that despite all the progress I've made, I still feel so powerless. I would like to extend my sincere apologies to everyone. For the first time ever, I adopted the Ida posture. A flawless 90-degree bow, accompanied by a sincere apology. Acknowledging my errors was the appropriate course of action, it appears. As everyone appeared to collectively breathe a sigh of relief, Chio simply shook her head slightly. It appears that I have let down my colleagues with this regrettable performance. The students exchanged glances with one another. They all nodded in agreement. Thank you, Naruto, for being such a great teacher. It was a refreshing change to receive appreciation after a long time. Even if they couldn't come to a clear consensus on what to address me as, I couldn't help but let out a sigh. I found this ending to be unsatisfactory. But not everything can always go according to plan. United we stand. I suppose he has a few more weeks left to live. Eliminating him at this moment would only portray me in a negative light. It's highly unlikely that the government will allow him to continue living after the stunt he pulled today. Once the students were settled, I took a moment to observe my surroundings. Perplexed as to when I reached this level of decline. Ending lives with a complete disregard for their value. I used to be an ordinary individual, what transpired? When I took action against the Shai Hasaikai, I found myself no longer concerned about the well-being of the villains in my vicinity. Even though no one lost their life on that day, I remained indifferent to causing them significant harm. I suppose that led up to the bridge incident. My actions that day may have been understandable, I wasn't as confident as I am now, but they certainly weren't morally justified. I could have chosen a different path that day. I could have approached it with a more professional mindset, like All Might, and only utilized lethal force against the more formidable villains. However, I regrettably resorted to indiscriminately eliminating all of them. Among both All Might and Endeavor, I had the least hesitation that day. It could be argued that Endeavor caused significant harm to individuals on that day. However, that is simply his fighting style. Typically, he maintains a level of restraint in order to apprehend the criminals he is chasing. However, he couldn't resist expressing himself that day, as he had no other option available to him. However, my typical approach to combat centers around utilizing a variety of kicks, punches, and a wide range of improvised weaponry. I decided to give it my all. A hero should not have a thirst for blood. That's a simple fact. Today I treated life poorly, even more than the obsessed Endeavor. I believe the only individual who can truly understand this is All Might. He had a fierce determination to defeat All for One. And it resulted in his severe injuries. Both of our outbursts were motivated by a desire for retaliation. However, mine resulted in a significantly higher number of casualties. Perhaps I am not the most mentally sound individual. Or perhaps I reached my breaking point witnessing everyone in that state. However, those are simply justifications. Perhaps it would have been wise to accept Nisa's offer following the bridge incident. He suggested that I consider seeing a psychiatrist, as certain experiences could potentially have lasting effects on my mental well-being. I suppose he was correct. Or perhaps I have always possessed them. Did the police psychiatrist overlook any underlying mental issues? Yes, it is indeed possible. Despite the challenges, I was able to regain my composure. However, I must admit that I couldn't have accomplished it on my own. Everyone in attendance played a role in assisting me in regaining my composure. I still need to schedule an appointment with the psychiatrist that Nisa recommended. Now I just need to tidy up a bit. All for One had already lost all hope. Not even making an effort to escape. It appeared that he found staring at the sky to be more captivating. Both Naijuru and Shinso appeared to unwind. Mina and Toru quickly joined the two. We had a brief conversation. I sought additional information regarding the events that transpired in this location. There were still some parts that remained unclear. Naruto. Where were the injured students and teachers taken? Mina appeared to be quite inquisitive today. I took them to the hospital. I'm not sure about their current status, I said in a serious manner. Although the situation here was resolved and concluded. The individuals who fought here today do not share the same level of professionalism. A significant number of individuals experienced injuries that had a profound impact on their lives. The students were also not exempted. Mineta was one of those individuals. Surprisingly, he didn't attempt to flee in fear. He persevered for a considerable amount of time, expertly maneuvering his balls within the confines of the circle they were safeguarding. However, he unfortunately fell victim to an attack from a malicious individual who possessed unique weapons protruding from his elbows. Mina mentioned that his survival was attributed to Kirishima's timely intervention, blocking the second blade. In addition to him, the majority of the first-year students only sustained minor injuries. The second and third years experienced significantly more challenges. Several individuals sustained injuries in critical areas. I successfully handled the situation, although I am uncertain about the survival of all individuals involved. Aizawa and Toshi both face significant challenges in terms of their survival. The other teachers will be able to persevere. Cementos is a resilient individual, there is no doubt in my mind that he will persevere. Everyone is exhausted, so Kyo's special ability won't be very useful. It could potentially have negative consequences. Mina appeared disappointed by my response. Toru appeared to be downcast. Shinso and Naijuru exchanged a brief glance. Naruto. Can you handle the remaining villains? Inquired Shinso. He maintains a composed demeanor even in this situation. I simply nodded and created duplicates to handle my tasks. Although I am the one responsible for the work, I'm not currently engaged in any activities, and that brings me joy. I also need to transport the more severely injured villains to nearby hospitals. there is a possibility that a few of them will make it through. They certainly wouldn't revert to a life of wrongdoing, especially after the events that transpired here. Shinso and the others attended to their classmates and took care of the less severe injuries. None of them had formal medical training, but applying a band-aid doesn't necessitate a medical degree. I glanced back one final time, taking in the sight of All for One. He appeared to be lost in his thoughts. "Hey there, young Naruto. It seems like there are some issues that need to be addressed. However, despite everything, I would like to express my gratitude for your assistance to everyone." It was Nizu, showing a gesture of respect by bowing his head to me. That's something he typically does in a light-hearted manner. I've never witnessed him display a submissive gesture towards anyone. "Excuse me, Nizu. Do you believe All Might will be okay?" That question was not very well thought out. I am already aware of the answer. The symbol of peace will retire after today. There is absolutely no doubt about it. If he manages to recover from his injuries, he will no longer have the ability to utilize One for All. Nizu simply shook his head. "Let's put that aside for the moment. Did you handle the giant villain in a competent manner?" I missed out on seeing it because I was preoccupied with this situation. I scratched the back of my head with a slight groan. I quickly removed his limbs while on live television. And I let the others handle the cleanup. Nizu simply glanced at me, his smile showing a hint of tension. Excellent. Yet another controversy. Just when everyone thought things couldn't get any more shocking, the recent events unfolded. He let out a small sigh as he walked away. "In returning to my workplace, I have a significant number of calls to make. Do you have any other places to go?" He is correct. Everyone, including Rumi, has sustained injuries. I desire to be by her side at this moment. Will All for One remain inactive during my absence? He appeared calm and composed, showing no signs of inciting any kind of disturbance. However, it is important to take certain precautions. I promptly contacted Power Loader to acquire specialized restraints and requested Kyo's assistance in obtaining a unique sedative. Typically, he remains unaffected by ordinary matters. However, the combination of Midnight's aroma appeared to be effective. Upon completing my task and apprehending the remaining wrongdoers, I swiftly made my way back to the hospital where I had taken Rumi. It was located on the opposite side of the country. It was a breeze to reach her side. She was currently undergoing a surgical procedure. I am unsure about the severity of her injuries, but at this moment, all I can do is remain seated and be patient. I will address everything else at a later time. One production that immediately comes to mind is The Sleeping Beauty. I suppose the story itself isn't particularly relevant. However, the name is quite appropriate for the situation. Rumi is currently in a comatose state. The surgery was successful, however, not all issues could be addressed simultaneously. It seems that her spinal cord was also impacted. There is a possibility that she may never regain the ability to walk. One would expect that there would be a remedy available to effectively heal her injuries. However, at present, the doctors are perplexed by it. Rumi is scheduled to be transferred to a hospital that is more conveniently located near home. She has yet to regain consciousness after approximately 10 hours. I am unable to be constantly present by her side. Although I am eager to. I need to attend to Eri. I cannot leave her unattended. It is important for both of us to be in excellent condition when Rumi wakes up. Hello there. She has the ability to heal Rumi. She should be capable of healing all those who were injured in the recent villain attack. She possesses exceptional skills in healing, capable of treating a wide range of ailments and injuries. Rewind is potentially much stronger than both One for All and All for One. However, Eri is still in the early stages of learning and hasn't quite mastered it yet. However, is she prepared for that? She has a strong handle on her quirk, although its limitations are still uncertain. What if she excessively reverts something? I would also appreciate it if she could maintain her youthful innocence for a little while longer. I will probably end up offering her the option. Given the circumstances, it would be irresponsible to ignore the situation. Clearly, her answer is quite straightforward. She will agree. Given Rumi's current condition, it is particularly important. There is no doubt that she will be more than willing to assist her. Regarding the fate of the others, Toshinori and Aizawa remained in the surgery room. They both have yet to be fully resolved. However, the assortment of healing techniques that the government is willing to utilize to ensure Toshi's survival could potentially extend their lifespan. The remaining ones have mostly recovered. It is unfortunate that a few students have lost their lives, necessitating a public apology from Nizu. The students who tragically lost their lives were the ones who made the decision to flee from the group. The teachers are facing criticism for allegedly failing to adequately protect them. While many individuals acknowledge that the situation was beyond their control, it feels a bit unusual, to be honest. Fortunately, the heroes are not widely held responsible for that day. The blame lies with the usual culprits: questionable news articles and individuals with alternative beliefs or opinions. It's remarkable how the applause effortlessly erases any scrutiny that may have been directed towards me. The public seems to have been affected by my intense and exaggerated actions that day. They were furious with the group of villains for targeting innocent children. I may have caused a significant number of casualties, but it occurred in a highly demanding and tense situation. It went unnoticed that I intentionally subjected a villain to both mental and physical torment. The media would surely be making a big deal out of that. I was responsible for managing Rumi's transportation. I ensured that she remained completely still. I surrounded her and all of the doctors with a luminous sphere. Returning to Musudafu took me approximately 2 hours. One of the doctors possessed a unique ability to ensure Rumi's stability throughout the duration of the flight. The others were accompanying as a precautionary measure. In addition, providing assistance to the hospitals in Musudafu. It was more efficient than traveling by plane, since there was no need to wait and go through the hassle of preparing the aircraft. The doctors expertly transferred Rumi to Musudafu's top hospital, where they also stayed, to assist the hard-working doctors of Musudafu. At this moment, Rumi simply required supervision, with minimal possibility of any additional complications. It would also be challenging, as the majority of the doctors were occupied with the injuries resulting from the recent incident involving the villain. The villains occupied the majority of the space. There were approximately 20,000 of them, although many of them were already beyond assistance. The prisons were also being filled with reformed criminals. The majority of the cells were utilized as recovery bays at this stage. I must admit, they were incredibly efficient. Gathering all the villains would require a significant amount of time. It seems like there were many individuals who offered their assistance. Many heroes were observed providing assistance as well. Whether driven by genuine goodwill or a desire for attention, it makes little difference, as long as they are truly providing assistance. After spending some time near Rumi, I should head back home. It's currently late at night. However, I am confident that Eri is still awake. It appears that she is still waiting there, and I am still unsure of how to deliver the news to her. It's likely that she is already aware of the situation. Despite her cheerful and naive demeanor, she possesses a keen sense of perception. Sometimes she can be quite intimidating, inheriting her mother's Rumi's traits. I wonder if Eri will be able to assist Rumi in recovering her quirk. I recall her remarkable talent for manipulating genetic material. However, she may not have the opportunity to utilize it at the moment. As I approached the entrance to our home, I could already feel her presence. She was lounging on the living room couch, appearing to be in a deep slumber. It's likely that she attempted to wait for me and Rumi to arrive, but eventually dozed off. I refrained from opening the door to avoid disturbing Eri's sleep. She could use some well-deserved rest. I also require ample rest. I feel quite exhausted. I gained access to the house through the lock. It was a clever technique I acquired to return home without Rumi questioning me about where I had been. It didn't actually work with her, but it was quite effective for remaining discreet. Fortunately, I made a point to avoid interacting with any other women, as she has a knack for detecting unfamiliar scents.
With that, this video comes to a close. I want to thank you for taking the time to see this video. Leave a like, subscribe, and watch the following video if you like this one.